Good afternoon. Welcome to the Digital Inclusion panel here at the Connected Communities Conference. My name is Bradley Upchurch and I'm the Digital Inclusion Manager for the City of Raleigh. We have a great panel of varying perspectives to talk more in depth about their experiences working to help alleviate the digital divide. But first, I'd like to provide some information to more clearly define what digital inclusion is, what the digital divide looks like here in the City of Raleigh, and what we're doing to address it. So the National Digital Inclusion Alliance is an organization that brings together people working on digital inclusion initiatives from all over the country. NDIA defines digital inclusion as the activities necessary to ensure that all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use of information and communication technologies. As conversations emerge and initiatives are created, it is important to remember the ultimate goal of digital inclusion, which is digital equity. Digital equity, as defined by NDIA, is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation. So this is our digital inclusion mission statement for the City of Raleigh. Our mission statement reflects the impact program participants make on our community. So what exactly is the Raleigh Digital Connectors Program? The Raleigh Digital Connector Program is for 15 selected civically engaged youth who commit to a program that focuses on leadership, technology, and volunteerism. The program runs over the course of 9 months, begins in September, and culminates in May during a graduation ceremony. The program has been running for over a decade, and as of May of next year, we will proudly graduate over 200. The Digital Ambassadors Program is for students who continue to support the Digital Connectors Program, and the program meets once a week, and participants continue to volunteer their time with digital inclusion efforts. The Raleigh Digital Connectors initially began in 2011 as a BTOP grant and the American Investment and Recovery Act under the Obama administration. So why do we do this work, and why have programs like the Raleigh Digital Connectors? As I'm sure many of you know, Raleigh is known for being a well-connected city, but even well-connected cities are met with challenges and divides that need to be addressed. The data shown on this map comes from the American Community Survey and was updated in August of 2019. The census tract listed with numbers on this map are areas of our city where at least 20% of the population still does not have a broadband subscription in the home. It's important to note that 7 of these tracts are within Southeast Raleigh. Even those with a broadband subscription oftentimes are still in need of a meaningful computer device, or they may need access to digital literacy training to help them fully invest in broadband and the digital economy. Over the last decade, the Raleigh Digital Connectors Program and the Alumni Network of Ambassadors have trained over 3,900 residents in digital literacy, refurbished and distributed over 1,000 computers, and collectively have served over 10,000 volunteer service hours. Now that I've given you a brief overview of digital inclusion work and why we do it, I would like to introduce you to a person who has been an integral part of the Digital Connectors Program and the work the City of Raleigh has done over the last 10 years. Her leadership continues to support and inspire our work in the community. Please help me in welcoming our panel host this afternoon, the Neighborhood Enrichment Administrator for the City of Raleigh, Ms. Linda Jones.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out to our session. I would like to, in advance, thank our panelists that we have here today. We did have one that was not able to make it, so I am grateful for those who did. I also would be remiss if I did not thank Bradley Upchurch as our program instructor and leader for the Digital Connectors Program. He does a phenomenal job, and so Bradley, you are greatly appreciated, and the impact you are making with the students, not only to help bridge the digital divide, but also being a mentor for them to help them in their civic work. So thank you. Okay, so I would like I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves. I think they can do a way better job than I can do. So we will start with Aiden. If you would just give your name, what school you attend, and your position here as a digital connector, and why are you interested in being on this panel today?
Of course. So my name is Aiden Adesoy, and I am a senior at Ravenscroft High School. I'm currently a part of the Raleigh Digital Ambassadors Program, and I'm here today to talk about my experience with the Raleigh Digital Connectors Program last year. Some of my favorite events that we have participated in are computer distributions and digital literacy training events.
Okay. Thank you, Aiden. And next we have Miss Yvette Holmes.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see you. Thank you, Linda and Bradley, for inviting me. I am the CEO of Southeast Raleigh Promise. We are a community quarterback organization focused solely on the uplifting and creating benefits and resources for Southeast Raleigh to thrive. In our work, we really focus on the gap, right? It's not just the opportunity, but there are gaps and opportunities for some citizens in our community, particularly those who call Southeast Raleigh home. So I look forward to having the conversation and talking more about some of our experiences and my personal experiences and how we can illuminate what all that has already been said and echoed by Bradley. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, we had one of our community partners that weren't able to be here today. So, of course, we do what we do best as staff, and we fill the gap. So Bradley has joined the panel, which is well-deserved. So, Bradley, would you like to say a few more words?
Sure. So as I mentioned, I'm the digital inclusion manager for the city of Raleigh. I actually started with the city in 2009 with the IT department as a full-time AmeriCorps volunteer. So it's really been exciting to see the digital connectors grow into the program that it is today, and that we're continuing to help with digital inclusion efforts.
All right, thank you. So the first question is presented to all three of you. How has the pandemic affected the work you do in the digital inclusion atmosphere? And we'll go with you start, Aiden.
Okay. So I'd say that the pandemic in general made our efforts just even more crucial because of the replacement of traditional day-to-day practices with technology, filling those inabilities to, participate in day-to-day life with technology. But at the same time, it's concurrently made them difficult to safely execute. So the very solution to an inability to be in person, being virtual, is the very thing that our target population lacks. So, since they don't have access to a computer or internet, it's a paradoxical situation. But we've been as proactive as we can to maximize our impact on the community.
Okay. Same question, Ms. Yvette.
Yeah, so I think it's been in a time where we're being asked to socially distance, technology has really been the tool that we've used to stay connected. And I think the challenge has been that not everyone has access to technology. So we're seeing in underserved communities, particularly, just a growing number of individuals isolated, because they can't connect to their loved ones, can't connect to resources. I didn't share, though I'm now the CEO of Southeast Raleigh Promise. Prior to this time, worked at DHIC in affordable housing. And just really looking at the social and emotional, mental health and wellness of our residents at the time, whatever we could do just to make sure people were well. And technology, though a solution, hasn't always been the solution. So I think between that and kids learning, remotely, and it just really, for me, highlighted and emphasized the gap that we already knew existed, but it certainly accentuated it in such a way that you can't just ignore it any longer, and we have to figure out ways in which we can close the digital divide for all the reasons that have been mentioned so far.
Okay. Thank you. And Bradley.
Yeah, so I think actually the pandemic for our work with digital inclusion, whether it be computer distribution or digital literacy training, I think the pandemic shed light on what we do. So it went from important to being absolutely essential and on everybody's mind. I'm pretty sure everybody's seen, local articles, national coverage on digital inclusion, students working remotely, parents for the first time working from home. So I think, with the pandemic, one of the silver linings has been that we've been able to shed light on the work that we do. A negative thing that has happened with the pandemic is that it's been really difficult to volunteer in the community. We're hoping to get back to doing some more of that, but it's very challenging to be able to train somebody who is not familiar with using technology. So I would definitely say that's been one of the challenges with the pandemic.
Yes, Aiden?
I'd like to talk about, one way we address that negative, I think, is we kind of shifted our focus from making an immediate impact through volunteering in terms of the Raleigh Digital Connectors to more of an education-focused program so that we could invest in a future of impact for all the members of the Raleigh Digital Connectors.
And so the theme I'm hearing from this particular question is, of course, the pandemic has raised the issue of who has access and who does not. And then those that have access, it's very stressful. Everything is on the internet. So we looked at the internet as this wonderful, powerful, engaging communication tool, but yet it can also be very challenging to our mental health and physical health. And those that have not, how do we work with larger providers such as the ISPs to create that access to the technology? Of course, our Wake County Public School System was a prime example of how they had to go into mode in terms of helping those students receive access. Okay, so now we're going to transition to individual questions. And we will start with you, Aiden. I got a couple of questions for you. What opportunities have been presented to you through your participation in the Digital Connectors program?
Okay, so the program not only exposed us to principles of leadership, entrepreneurship, collaboration, public speaking, civic engagement, financial literacy, and digital literacy, as well as many others, through our learning modules, but it also allowed us to apply these principles during various real-world opportunities. My favorites being computer distributions or digital literacy training events. But I'd say overall, in terms of what we learned as a part of the program, the most valuable aspect was probably developing the ability to take advantage of all the opportunities that presented ourselves in the future, especially with helping the community. I think that a lot of what holds people back in terms of making an impact on the community is a fear of risk-taking, and I think that's something that the program reinforced.
Okay, thank you. What has been an impactful initiative or project that you have worked on in the program, and why?
I'd say the computer distribution has been the most impactful. It has very much tangible, response in terms of the people that you're helping. I'd say there's a specific computer distribution that I did with Mr. Upchurch, and we were helping this family, and it included this grandmother and her 3 children. And as the family was watching me set up their computer, the eldest son, who looked about 9 years of age, I realized that if this kid didn't have a phone or a computer, and Wake County had elected to go fully virtual, how was he participating in school at all? And that's when I kind of realized how important our work was, because we actually allowed these children to participate in school, period. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you for those impactful experiences, and which is a nice transition to the next couple of questions to Yvette. So we've talked about what the program mission is and what we actually do to try to make the impact as best that we can at this governmental level. So now we also extend that olive branch to the different communities. So the first question I have for you, Yvette, is the city has provided computers and digital literacy trainings to underserved communities. Please share some impacts on the community that this program has made.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. And again, I draw my experience from my time at DHIC and hope to transfer that experience in my new role. But I think more broadly speaking, and how I'm familiar with the program, is the families that live in affordable housing especially. we know it's the three-legged stool, right? It's the device, the connectivity or subscription to broadband, and then there's the education. So you can have two of those and still not be fully connected. And so we had some families at the various properties that, didn't have a device. I'm thinking about a young kid now, and I'm guessing he's probably in middle school at this point. He was participating in after-school tutoring on site at a given site and couldn't really figure out what the disconnect was for him, literally. And it turns out that he didn't have a computer in the home to go home and kind of, do his homework and then practice as instructed. And so once that was determined, then it was like connecting, the family to the resources that were in the community, the city, of course, and Camden Institute being two of those resources. And I think for me, because I'm all about engagement, is that's the piece. Like, we have to continue to keep engaging and keep having the conversations. And it's not enough to just put the information out and then assume that everybody's just going to consume it, because in this day of information overload, that typically is not the case. So, it's been really great to be able to go and have the resources available that we can then connect families to. And that's what we do at Southeast Raleigh Promise. Though we're not a direct provider of service, we do leverage those resources, and we do connect families to resources that are available. And I expect that we will do more of that in the coming months and years.
Absolutely. So you referenced the three-legged stool, and I just want, for the audience information, we had assembled the panel to present the three-legged stool. Of course, it's our students that are impacted that go out and teach their family, friends, and neighbors that start to build that legacy about building the digital divide. Carrie from Camden, who could not be here today, Camden is a company that refurbishes computers, and they have trainings as well, and so that's the resources. And then, of course, it's all about the families who is actually receiving these resources. And so that was initially how our panel was put together. So I just wanted to give a little background. And so my second question, Yvette, is what are some strategies that have allowed Southeast Raleigh Promise to be a successful contributor in bridging the digital divide?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is just acknowledging that there's a divide. Like, it's not, we talk about equity in all things, and our work is rooted in equity. But what does that look like in all spaces? And so, part of our work really is to get out and do more of an environmental scan and have those conversations with families to figure out what some of their unique challenges might be. I do want to share, and maybe not directly answer that question, and I'm answering it hopefully in some way, but I wanted to share, was on a panel a couple of weeks ago at the Southeast Raleigh YMCA at our Beacon site along Rock Quarry Road, and we heard from teens and youth, and they talked about how mentally exhausting it was during the time that they were remotely learning from home, and but they brought a perspective. The perspective was that here these young people were in high school. Not only did they have to now be responsible for themselves, but now they were caring for their younger siblings. Because guess what? Not everybody had the benefit and luxury of working from home. So these are parents, frontline workers who still had to go out and staff the grocery stores and all the conveniences that we all enjoy. They didn't get to work from home. And so guess who was at home caring for the younger ones who were also at home? Well, the older siblings. And so they talked about getting up and having to get their younger sibling connected and getting them logged in and getting them so they understood what was going on, and then get themselves connected. And the young man that was, giving his account just simply said, it's just too much. Like how many times have we all just been in a situation where it was just overwhelming? Well, these are 17 and 18-year-olds. And so I thought to myself, not only probably did they need one device, they needed 2 and 3 devices. They needed a broadband that could accommodate the activity and the flow of information. And so these are things that's where we have to like drill down to that level so we can understand what the gaps are and unique challenges are for families, and then figure out there how do we help to close the gap.
Thank you. And so, as I said earlier, Bradley is filling in. So Bradley, I wanted to ask from your perspective, you have been with the program since 2010, and you've seen a lot of changes, you've made some enhancements. But looking back through all of the programs and the students that have come through and what we've done with this work that has fortunately helped us to be nationally recognized, what do you say were the most challenges that we started out with and that you see that we have addressed thus far?
I would say one of the biggest challenges is, well, at least before the pandemic, was people's perception of what digital inclusion is and how we bridge the digital divide. And I think one of our challenges was making sure that we told our story. Because Digital Connectors is a fairly unique program, and they do work a lot with the community, and so being able to sort of educate the public and tell specific stories about success stories from Digital Connectors that have graduated the program. I know we have Ashley Okpara, who's in the audience today, and her sister actually went to Stanford University, and on her acceptance letter, they talked about the work that she did with Digital Connectors. So, it took us some time to figure out how to make successful stories and add those to, like our city website. But I think those things have really helped culminate the program to what it is today.
Thank you. So, following up on that, how has the pandemic kind of changed the perspective of the program? Because I know we really had to pivot differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pandemic has definitely changed the way we do a lot of our work. So for example, we're doing a teen hackathon next week where students are solving neighborhood and community problems, but instead of doing that in the Google Fiber space where we used to do it, we are now doing that virtually. And so there's multiple examples of things like that where we've had to, redirect and reimagine the volunteer work that we do. We're still going to be doing things like computer distribution, but we're going to be doing it in a safer manner. So definitely been a challenge to figure out how you move all of these things virtually.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sure, go ahead. It's conversation.
Yeah, and I wanted to, looking at these handheld devices here, and everyone has one nowadays. I mean, I don't know how many times you all been out to public places and people sitting at the table across from one another, and everybody's got this, this is the thing that's keeping people entertained these days. And so, but I imagine having to complete an application on if this is your only means of connectivity, and which I learned is not a stable source of connectivity. But imagine if you had to fill out applications or access, telemedicine or whatever resources, it's a world of resources out here. Last year, Southeast Raleigh Promise, where I was not at the time, but worked with DHIC, we were leasing up Beacon Ridge Apartments at the Beacon site, again off of Rock Quarry Road. And it was in the midst of the pandemic, in the height, of the pandemic, where we weren't really sure what we were gonna do. But we knew we had to socially distance, and we knew that we had to be safe. And so that was the first virtual lease-up that took place, where people had to go online and submit their applications as opposed to showing up in person. And I just say, imagine doing homework on just if this is all you have, or doing, again, applications if this is all you have. And so I wanted to bring that point, and my last point would be that the intergenerational piece of it. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about, for us breaking the cycle of intergenerational poverty, this whole idea is that you have now young people having to train their elders or their parents or their grandparents, right? To make sure that they know how to also use not just this, but the technology, writ large. So I just wanted to bring up those two things that came to mind as you were sharing your points.
Thank you for bringing that up, because we have incorporated throughout the years in the curriculum how we educate parents of looking up City of Raleigh resources, how you navigate the City of Raleigh website to find the resources, trash pickup, when council meetings are going to take place. Then we also created a curriculum around health where we would show people how to look up their medication. And then it was one other thing we did, Bradley. What was that? So much we did. There's one other curriculum we created.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've done a variety of digital literacy over the years, and that's one thing I would say that's a challenge, is that it constantly changes. It's really hard to create curriculum. You have to constantly reevaluate and look at what the community needs are. So the example Linda was giving was from Shaw University, and we had a collaboration with them to teach people how to access reliable health information, because oftentimes people will just put in a WebMD and freak out or get really paranoid about something that they might shouldn't. So we tried to create a training where they would find reliable information around medical.
See, the young minds are always sharper than the older minds, so that's why I love my staff, So we are gonna, we're coming to a close, and we do want to give some opportunities to the audience to ask any questions of the panelists. So I'm gonna come up on my final question to the panel, but before I do that, I would like to also acknowledge one of our greatest supporters here for the Digital Connectors program, and that is Mayor Marianne Baldwin. So we greatly appreciate your support. We heard the shout out on Tuesday at council meeting. So she sings our praises wherever we go, but honestly, if we didn't have the support of the city to get these partnerships together, then we would not be here to talk with you about this important topic. So that brings us to our final question, and Aiden, I'll kick back off with you. So in closing, please share the most rewarding experience you've had in doing this work.
So during my Raleigh Digital Connectors graduation speech, I reflected on the program's final project, which changes every year. For us, it was a collaborative project that produced a very tangible final product, and it was a walking tour of Raleigh. And it was aimed at promoting a more widespread involvement in the community after the social isolation incurred by the pandemic. My reflection proved this to be very rewarding, as one thing that the program focused on was how important collaboration was, as we noticed that there's no way this final product could have been produced through individual efforts, and that fact was proved to us when we went on to win the Mayor Baldwin's Big Ideas for Downtown Challenge for our project.
That's good. Okay, thank you for that. Yvette, same question to you. Please share your most rewarding experience you've had in doing this work.
For me, it's about connecting people at the end of the day to resources and opportunities that they would not otherwise be aware of or would have access to. And so, Southeast Raleigh Promise, yes, we've partnered and received grants to help purchase laptops for even some of the teachers and some of the households and families that need them. But the connection piece for me, appropriately so, seeing how we're talking about digital connection, is really, for me, the most rewarding piece of it. And then just making sure that people have the resources and tools that they need to thrive. I mean, at the end of the day, and have what they need to just fulfill the promise for themselves. And so there's much we can do for people, but it's best to do it alongside people. Mm-hmm. And so if we can empower people to connect, to know how to turn on the computer and maneuver and manipulate and go to different websites to access resources, for me, that is the most rewarding piece.
And I would like to, Ms. Holmes is being very modest. I would like to point out, when we started this work with the city 10, 11 years ago, she was one of our original partners, the same way as Cramden was. So I just want to also thank you for sticking with us as you've evolved in your career, but still, as you say, it's still about connecting, right? And it's not only about, it's really about the people that we serve in this great city. So thank you.
Thanks.
And Bradley, I know you have several, so this is going to be a tough question for you. So what would be your most rewarding experience in doing this work?
I would have to say that seeing young people engaged in their communities, understanding what Raleigh is as a city, watching Raleigh grow, but really just seeing youth civically engaged in the community is by far the most rewarding thing. It makes me wish that, I had a program like Raleigh Digital Connectors when I was in high school, because I think they get a lot of opportunities by just being out in the community, learning people's names, and being able to make an impact. Being able to be in government and make a direct impact on the community is very rewarding for me.
Thank you. Well, that completes our questions for our panel, and let's please give them a round of applause for sharing their knowledge with us and time today. And so we do have a few minutes if we have any questions from the audience. Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Excellent panel, thank you. Are you folks working to get some grants, or do you have like a formal effort to get some of this federal money that's now coming down? Your program is clearly a model for the U.S., so do you have formal programs going after the grant money?
I'll take that. So we have some internet service providers have been ongoing support for our programs. Both AT&T, Google Fiber have been huge supporters of the program over the years. In terms of federal grant money, we have worked on the emergency broadband benefit to make sure people are aware of that reimbursement opportunity for families to be able to get broadband in the home. We've created a flyer and added that to our webpage. So I definitely think we're going to be doing more of that as we move forward.
Absolutely.
And we're also always looking for partners, and so we know of a local institution of higher learning that's applying for federal dollars to do a digital inclusion program, and have done outreach to us to help with the community engagement piece of that, so that we're training, it's like peer-to-peer, resident-to-resident type of training, and that it's the people in the community that are doing outreach to other people in the community, and we would support an effort such as that. So they just submitted that grant, I think, last week or so, and I guess we'll hear back in the new year.
Nice. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? All right. Well, we greatly appreciate your time, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend.